All right, welcome everyone. As you're getting online here, if you don't mind, please set your chat to everyone so that everyone can see anything that you post in there. And also just introduce yourself, where you're from, so that we get a good idea where everyone's at. And we'll get started here in just a few moments. We want to give everyone a minute or two to get online. Those of you that are just getting online, if you don't mind, just set your chat to everyone so that everyone can see your post, and then introduce yourself in the chat, include where you're from, and we'll be starting here in just another minute or two. All right, looks like we have people from all over the country. That's awesome. And Korea, awesome. So just one last reminder, please make sure you set your chat to everyone, and we're going to get started. Just a couple housekeeping things. Our webinar tonight will be between 30 and 40 minutes long, and then we'll have some Q&A at the end. So if you do have any questions at any point in time, feel free to throw them in the Q&A section inside of Zoom, and we will answer those as we go, or at the Q&A session at the end. Just a reminder again to set your chat to everyone. That way, anything you post goes out to everyone, not just those of us that are presenting today. Again, leave those questions in the Q&A, and make sure you hang around for the end. There are two giveaways to this webinar. So those of you that are familiar with our Sphero webinar series, we usually have a giveaway, but we also have some guests on here with us tonight from Onshape, and they are going to do a swag giveaway as well. All right, so we're going to get started. Our agenda today is we're going to talk about why Blueprint and Onshape, so why use these two resources together, as well as look at the lessons and resources that are out there. We're going to have a brief Onshape demo that'll take place tonight. We'll also talk about 3D printing and CAD resources that are specific to Sphero Blueprint, our Q&A, and then, of course, like I said, hang around for those giveaways. That's really, really important. We will have two separate giveaways, one for a Sphero Blueprint kit and one for the Onshape swag giveaway. So we have two presenters tonight. Myself, Brad Fessler. I am a former high school educator. I taught grades 9 through 12 technology and engineering education. I've also done a lot of content writing for all kinds of different topics in the tech and engineering world. And I work as the professional development manager here at Sphero. And I'm going to turn it over to Drew from Onshape.
Thanks, Brad, and thanks for having me on the webinar tonight. So, hey everybody, my name's Drew Bennett. I'm an education solutions engineer on the Onshape education team. So a little bit about me. When I was very early in high school, I learned that CAD was my passion, and I've just pursued it ever since. So I've been using CAD for both industrial settings and in competition robotics settings for just over 10 years now, and I am a certified Onshape professional. So on the Onshape education team, and why I'm here today. So I focus on enablement materials and support for K-12 teachers, students, and different extracurricular programs.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on here tonight with us, Drew. We really appreciate you bringing your expertise to us here tonight.
Glad to be here.
All right, so real brief, why use Sphero Blueprint? So engineering education is becoming more and more prevalent in our classrooms, both middle school and high school. So we wanted to develop a system that is not intimidating and allows for our students to get up and running very quickly and easily with those engineering concepts, right? So we made sure that we made the kit super easy and quick to work with, have some awesome lessons that we'll talk about more in depth throughout here. So the first part of this is our blueprint build kit, which is uses a bunch of simple, easy to use pieces. It's not a ton of specialty parts like you might find in other kind of engineering kits where it's this one-off part to do this one very specific thing. Our parts are designed to be versatile and easy to use with that. Our concept here was speed. We wanted to be able to assemble and disassemble our builds very, very quickly. Most of the content with the blueprint kit is designed to happen in one class period. So students can build something, do the learning, do the worksheet or whatever other content goes with that, and then disassemble it and put it away and have it ready for the next class coming in, which is super, super helpful. You don't have to worry about storing pieces while other students have to use different products throughout that time. And every part of this was driven using standards to produce this kind of a product. So let's take a look at some of those lessons and resources that we have out there with the Blueprint build kit. So we have about 50 plus hours of standards aligned lessons and curriculum that's in there. They are aligned to NGSS and the STEL standards. So we are looking at those CTE kind of concepts throughout these lessons. The class pack comes with an educator guide and challenge cards to get your students up and running very, very quickly at that. Unbox this thing and get moving, ready to go. We have 2 unit plans. The first one is simple machines, and the second one is build your own carnival, where students take what they've learned with those simple machines lessons and go into some really fun, a little more advanced builds as they go. Those are just really a lot of fun. We go from the points of where students are told what to build and how the learning goes, and then start to give them more and more freedom throughout their build so that they can really express their creativity and their understanding of those concepts. So some of the themes that we look at with simple machines is being able to identify and explain and work with those simple machines, as well as looking at mechanical advantage. So being able to calculate that ideal mechanical advantage in those particular systems. The good news is Blueprint is designed to make this super easy. So it's a truss-based system. Each pitch of that truss is 25 millimeters. So all of your math is an increment of 25. We do deal with some weights. We have some weighted trusses, and those are increments of 25 grams in there. And again, that is designed to keep the math super, super easy so that students aren't intimidated by complex math as they go through the lessons. And the last theme is those compound machines, where we combine a bunch of simple machines together to complete a task using that compound machine, which makes for some really, really fun builds. Our lesson format includes 4 pieces of content that goes in there. We have a teacher guide. Think of this as your lesson plan. There's all kinds of your standards are listed in there, your duration, how to prep for everything throughout there, all of that foundational knowledge, because we know not every teacher is a tech and engineering teacher. So we prep you with some of that foundational knowledge so that you're prepared to answer questions and deliver this content as well. Then we have lesson slides. So those lesson slides are ready for you to deliver to the student. You don't need to build your own lessons throughout there. We have all those slides ready to go for you. There's also a student handout, and this is where students do their mechanical advantage, calculations, and look at applications on how they can do some things. So like when we're looking at inclined planes, what are some uses of inclined planes? How can we do those kinds of things? So that's all included in the student handout. And the last thing is our build instructions. And if you're looking at this slide on the right-hand side, those build instructions are actually interactive. So students click a button, they see the pieces they need to put together and how they go together. They're animated. And since they were built using 3D models, the students can actually click and drag and pan around the model and see it from different points of view to make it 100% clear on how they should put all of this together. So why should we teach CAD using Blueprint? Well, as a former CAD teacher, both at the high school and collegiate levels, I can tell you personally that spatial reasoning can be an issue for some students, right? Understanding what they're looking at and seeing it in the real world brings the CAD concepts to life, right? We're turning these conceptual ideas into physical structures and being able to see it both in the CAD environment and in the real world, hands-on, right there in front of them. It also allows them to see the real world constraints of those particular mechanisms that are in there. So in this particular animation, we can see this is our pirate ship ride, right, coming out of the carnival builds. So we can see that when we turn the handle, the gears turn, we can see how those work, and that the pirate ship ride kind of oscillates back and forth. And we can see how that will work, not only in the CAD system, but in the real world as we're going. And the last reason, which is a big one, is students are able to get an industry certification while still in high school. And they can work through some of this content and other content. Blueprint does not prepare the students to take this exam just on its own. It's just a supplemental way to get them going through it. And I'll let Drew talk more about that a little while later as we go. So with that being said, I'm going to turn this over to Drew so he can tell us a little bit about why we should use Onshape as a CAD system.
Thanks, Brad. So I just wanted to start and say, everyone is Onshape. Super excited to be working with Sphero to provide students with easy and free access to CAD software that works really well in the education space. So Onshape is a fully featured parametric CAD software that is used by a variety of professional companies, which can sound scary, but Onshape's user interface is very simple and easy to learn, which is why we already have millions of students and educators that are already using Onshape. So let me quickly highlight some of Onshape's best features. So whether you want to create individual parts, small or large assemblies, or even 2D drawings, Onshape does have all the tools that you and your students will need. Also, Onshape is fully cloud native, so you don't need to worry about downloads or updates or any of that IT hassle. It also allows our servers to do all the heavy computations, which makes it very easy to run on whatever device you have. Like Google Drive, Onshape makes it very easy to share your designs with other users, so you and your students can work together in real time to create whatever parts and assemblies you might want to make using your Blueprint kits. Students are already so used to a Google Drive-like workflow to collaborate, so this is going to fit into exactly what they're already used to and what they expect out of different software offerings. And of course, because Onshape is cloud-based, it can run on whatever device you and your students are able to use. So it runs well on Chromebooks and Macs and Windows devices, and we also do have an app for both iOS and Android devices. So you can log into whatever device you have and keep working on your models. And of course, most importantly, it's free and will stay free for students, educators, and mentors. So your students can fill out our sign-up form and start modeling whatever you can imagine in just a couple minutes. So actually, let's hop over and I'll talk about that sign up process. So students and teachers can navigate to onshape.com/edu and click the create an account option on the education homepage. You can see in that picture, it's highlighted in that green box. Once you're at that form, you and your students will need to fill it out. Just a couple questions, things like email address, name, school website. There's no rigorous verification process or anything hard, so this form should only take about 2 or 3 minutes to complete. Once you've submitted it, you're going to receive an email from alerts@onshape.com. So make sure your students can receive emails from outside senders that, might get caught in your school's filtering system. Once that email arrives, they'll be able to click the activation link, set a password, and hop right into Onshape. Cool. So with all that said, I feel like it's time we should actually hop into Onshape so you can see it in action. So I am going to explain everything at a relatively high level, but I will be providing resources a little bit later on in the webinar. So a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about, you're going to be able to find in the Onshape Learning Center, which I will cover in a little bit. So let me start sharing my screen and we'll see Onshape in action. Perfect. Let me move my screen around just a little bit. Make sure that I can still see everything. Perfect. So the first tab I'm showing here is the first part of the sign up page. Just wanted to, recover that real quick. As you can see, it is pretty simple. It's just going to ask for your first name, last name, and email address. Once you click the Get Started button, you're then going to be brought to this form right here to complete your sign up for Onshape Education. So again, we're going to ask for just some quick information, school name, school website URL, where you're located, when you're going to be graduating, what are you using Onshape for. Sphero Blueprint is a fantastic answer. And then just some quick checks about how old you are and, following our policies, complete sign up. That's all there is to it. Once you click complete sign up, we will send you that verification email so you can set your password and get started. So I've already got, of course, many logins. So I'm going to hop over to Onshape right now. I'll actually go back to my documents page. So when you log into Onshape, this is what you will see, except yours will be blank. I've got just a little bit here. This is one of my demo accounts, and I wanted to show off a little bit of what it's going to look like once you've started using Onshape. So as you can see, I've got some folders here. I've also got a couple different Onshape documents. And on the left, I'm able to filter different documents that I either own or that have been shared with me by other Onshape users, or might have been shared with me as part of a team I'm a part of. So that is what the documents page will look like. And of course, as you make more models, it's going to fill up. So you'll be able to use the search and different filters to find what you're looking for. I'm going to hop into my Sphero webinar examples document. And then I'm going to explain a little bit more what an Onshape document is. So, it sounds like from the chat, there are some users that are familiar with Onshape, and there might be other users that are familiar with other CAD packages like SolidWorks or Inventor or Fusion 360. So I wanted to cover what is an Onshape document. So the best way to think of an Onshape document is as a container for all of the data that is relevant to the project you're creating. So an Onshape document can contain parts. As you can see, I've got a part studio right here. It can also include assemblies. It can include your drawings. It'll take a second to load up. It can also even contain things like PDFs. So here's a little sneak peek of something Brad's going to be showing later. And then it can even contain MP4 videos if you want to include video instructions for your students as part of a document that you're sharing with them. So the ability to have all of this different data in an Onshape document is very helpful. So I will go back at this point to my Part Studio tab. And I just wanted to show off a little bit of the actual part creation process. So for those of you, again, who are familiar with SolidWorks or Inventor, we haven't done anything drastically different. It's going to be following the same parametric paradigm of using 2D sketches. So of course I can start a sketch, choose a sketch plane. I'll just draw a super simple circle just to illustrate this point. You're able to apply dimensions. So let me make this exactly 3/4 of an inch. And once you've created your 2D elements, you can then use, tools that you're familiar with, like extrude and revolve and sweep and loft. Of course, also got fillet and chamfer. These are all words that you will know if you're familiar with CAD software. You can use these tools to turn your 2D elements into 3D shapes. Now, something that's really neat and is a little bit different about the Onshape workflow is that our part studios do allow you to make multiple unique parts in one part studio. So of course, with SolidWorks and Inventor, you make a part and that's a file. If you want to make a new part, you open a new file. With Onshape, you are able to make, unique and discrete parts. So if I, extrude this face, but instead of doing an add, I make it a new part, you'll see that in my parts list here on the left, I've got my custom accessory from before, but I also have this now unique part too. So this is really useful. And I find, especially the students I teach, they find this very intuitive, that they can make parts that are going to connect together, but they can actually model them together to make sure that before they bring it into the assembly, everything's going to connect. It's also very nice because if I was to change the dimension of, maybe the diameter of this cylinder, everything else will update parametrically. So as I make small changes, I still know everything is going to fit together. Cool, so I wanted to show that off real quick. Of course, assemblies are going to be very important for everyone that's going to be working with the Blueprint build kit, because of course you might 3D print a few of your own parts, but the majority of it is going to be learning that spatial reasoning Brad mentioned using assemblies. So of course, the Sphero team has done an awesome job of making sure that all of their parts are super easy to use in Onshape assemblies. So of course, I've got a super simple assembly here. I'm no Blueprint expert, but I did want to show it off. But it is really easy to insert their parts. So I've got it set up where I have the Blueprint parts library document as one of my labels, which we will explain how to do, and that is covered in our Learning Center, I promise. But you can see right here, I do have the ability to click on Sphero Blueprint Parts. I'll click on my Blueprint Parts document, and just like that, I've got a whole bunch of different parts I can add in, which is super easy to set up for students, should take no more than like a minute, and then it's there for good on their account. And I'll drop in a connector and I'll show off this process real quick. So Onshape does do assemblies a little different. We use mate connectors, which are like small XYZ coordinate systems, and you're going to align two of them together to fully define two objects together instead of doing things like coincident and concentric. So in the interest of time, I'll show this off real quick and then try and wrap up my demo, hand it back over to Brad. But let me show off all these mate connectors. And I just want to show how simple it is. Again, great job by the Sphero team making it so easy. All you have to do is click this coordinate system here and this one here. And just like that, the two parts will snap together and that connector is perfectly in place and you can then start building off of it. So easy to use, should be very intuitive for any student that is just starting out. Other things I wanted to highlight real quick, two things. Up here in the top right corner, I've got my big blue share button. So again, I said, sharing an Onshape is very Google Drive-like. So when you click share, you will have the ability to type in emails and give, edit and view permission. Again, this is very similar to Google Drive, so it should be very intuitive for students. They'll be able to share documents with you so you can hop in and give them help, or you can just see what they're up to as they're developing their models. Other thing I did want to point out a little bit in the webinar, a little later in the webinar, I'm going to talk about the Onshape Learning Center, which is accessible right here by clicking on the Go to Learning Center button. Perfect. So that is a very high level intro to Onshape. Just wanted to show off, a couple of our capabilities, as well as show, the Blueprint parts that are available in Onshape. And at this point, Brad, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Thanks, Drew. Awesome demo. Appreciate your expertise there. And I'm going to share our presentation again. And one of the things that Drew kind of gave you a little sneak peek on was our CAD guide. And our CAD guide is a free PDF that's available on our website. And that CAD guide walks through all kinds of being able to use Onshape as well as other software packages with Blueprint. We do provide our parts in that Onshape document as well as in a step file format, and that step file is compatible with most other CAD platforms out there. There's no need to import anything. If you're using Onshape, that's already done for you. You just open up that Onshape document, make a copy of it, or link to it using labels, and then you're able to start building your own custom accessories, like what Drew had demonstrated with adding a cylinder to that, as well as being able to build your own assemblies by bringing all of those blueprint parts together and defining all of their parameters as far as movements and how to mate them. All those different things are available. The cool thing about the CAD guide is not only do we provide the like why and that kind of thing, there's also a bunch of demo videos that are in there that are specific to Onshape and Blueprint. So how do we bring in those parts? How do we mate them together using fastened mates or slider mates or Revolute mates? All of those demo videos are linked right inside of the CAD guide for you. Those videos can be sent right to students if you want to use them as instructional tools directly, or they can be used as a reference for yourself to learn how to work with it. So there's lots of options in there with that CAD guide. So go check it out on the Sphero website. We also have another guide in there for 3D printing. And we want our students to be able to make all the cool creations that they can come up with all their creative talents inside of CAD. So I mentioned before, we don't want to produce all these like custom one-off parts. That's not the kind of system we want to build. We want your students to be able to come up with all those cool parts and produce them. So what we've done is we've provided everyone with a starter part that's right inside of that Onshape document. And what it is a 3D printed friendly version of our connector socket. So you can take that and then build on top of it. And the cool part is after you 3D print it, our connectors will snap right into it just like it was a manufactured part. So you can come up with all kinds of cool things. You can see in here, we have a hook for our one crane activity that we do. We also we have a prize wheel. So we have a prize wheel that's in here. There's all kinds of cool things in there. If you don't necessarily want to design in CAD right away, but you're looking for some of these cool accessories, we have links to the actual STL files that you can download and 3D print right inside of the 3D printer printing guide. With that, I'm going to turn this back over to Drew to talk about how you can learn a little more about Onshape.
Thanks, Brad. So I ended my demo earlier by pointing out the Learning Center. So of course, now we're going to circle back as it's one of Onshape's most important resources for both teachers and students who are new to Onshape or experienced with Onshape. So the Onshape Learning Center has a massive number of free resources that are created and tailored by us at Onshape. So we have everything from simple starting learning pathways like the CAD Basics one that's pictured there, all the way to things like complex sheet metal modeling. Now, of course, sheet metal modeling is well beyond the scope of what your students will need to work with Sphero Blueprint, but if they're passionate about designing and this sort of sparks that interest for them, there are tutorials that will help them become extremely proficient in 3D modeling. So also in the Learning Center, we have a dedicated section just for educator resources for all of you in attendance here. So this section, we've got complete curriculum packages. It's a 9-week curriculum course called Intro to CAD. We also have a lot of previous recorded webinars and videos. We also have a lot of partner resources that are all organized for you in the Educator Resources section of our Learning Center. And of course, as Brad mentioned earlier, certifications and making sure students are certified, while they're in high school is an awesome opportunity. So of course, you want to set them up for success, whether they're going on to further education or just directly into the workplace. And the Onshape Associate Certification Exam is a great way for companies to identify users who are very proficient in CAD softwares and Onshape. So this is a 3-hour-long exam that covers all of the major components of using a CAD software like Onshape. So as you can see, it's going to quiz you on things such as single part modeling, multi-part modeling, how to do assemblies, how to read and create drawings, and then also how to use the sharing and collaboration features of Onshape. And for this, we generally recommend that students have about 30 hours of experience usually outside the classroom. So like that's, usually measured in like take home projects or personal passion projects. And we definitely recommend a strong knowledge of CAD fundamentals. If this is of interest to you, please reach out to us at educustomersuccess@ptc.com. Be more than happy to work with you to set this up for your institution.
Awesome. Thanks, Drew. And I'd like to add to this. I see some people asking in the chat, has anyone had their students get certified? This is something that I did while I was still working in my high school classroom, and I did have students take this exam. The exam is challenging, I will say that. If your students pass this exam, it does mean that they really know how to use it. It's not something where you're like, I kind of have an idea how CAD works and go in and take that and be successful. You need to really, buckle down and learn the concepts that are there and do this. But it is an industry level certification. So it is not just that kind of general knowledge test. You really do need to, have some work that goes throughout that. Sphero also offers some professional development, not necessarily in the CAD world, but we do offer things with our products, including Blueprint. We have two options that are out there. We have our virtual all access training, which is a year-long subscription to live training via Zoom. You always get someone from our content team on the Zoom with you. It's not just watching a video or anything like that. You schedule it on your schedule, and it can cover any Sphero product, like I mentioned, including Blueprint. Each subscription covers up to 20 people, as well as we have an on-site training option where we come to you and personalize the training for up to 30 people. We can do larger groups with additional trainers, but where we come to you to do that. And as Drew mentioned before, there is some Onshape training available out there through an outside organization called ITEEA. And ITEEA offers what they call their Scholastics program, which is a graduate level course specifically on their Onshape by Design curriculum. So that curriculum is designed to take students from very basic drafting knowledge to industry certification in that one course. So there is some curriculum out there to prepare your students for that. All right, with that, we want to take a look and address some of those Q&A things that are out there. So Drew, I'm gonna give you this one question that's out there.
I'm ready.
Can you provide teacher feedback directly in Onshape to the student?
I like that question. That's a cool question. All right, so I am going to steal back the screen sharing because I think this is best going to be answered by me demoing it for you. So let's do that.
Absolutely.
Share my screen and share. Can you see that? Perfect. All right, so of course, I talked a little bit before about you can use the share button up here to type in, emails of other students or educators to share a document. And once you've done that, a great way to provide feedback is by using the comment functionality that is built into every Onshape document. So I've got a couple different options here. So when you click the comments flyout, you're going to see the ability to add a comment. So of course, at this point, I could just say, nice work, and add a comment. Now, you can also do other things. So I'm going to actually share it with Mackenzie real quick, who's one of my coworkers, just so I can use her as my example. So I'll share that with her, and you can see how easy the sharing really is. It is just a couple clicks. Now that she's shared in this document, I will have the ability to say, at Mackenzie, can you adjust where this connector is? Now, great way to provide feedback, when you click the assign button, it will then show up in the view all action items, which is really cool. So if you actually want to give your students like an actual thing that they can click a checkbox to let you know that they've done it, you can, simply at them in the comments feature and then assign it to them. Beyond that, you can also actually tag specific parts of a model so they know exactly what you are giving feedback about. So I'm going to zoom in on this connector. I will click tag and I'm going to click on it. You can see now it's added to the comment and I'm going to assign it to Mackenzie. Now what's really cool is, let's say I'm like way off in space. If Mackenzie was to open the document and see this comment, she can click on that face of connector 4 and it'll zoom her right back into exactly what I was looking at. So it makes it super easy for you to provide very specific feedback to your students. They'll know exactly what you're commenting on so they know what to fix. So comments makes it really easy to provide feedback. I think that's the best way to answer that question.
Drew, while you're still sharing, I'm going to keep that up there.
Perfect.
And I just want to add one thing to this. Having taught using Onshape, both high school students and professionals through this, the comments and being able to communicate right inside of Onshape is so amazing to be able to do that. I ran a graduate level course and had people in all over the US, as well as 7 additional countries outside of the US in that same grad course, all at the same time. So we were in very different time zones all over the planet, and we were all able to communicate right inside of Onshape, which just is so, so valuable to go through that. So thank you for doing that. And while you're still sharing, I'm going to bring up the next question is, if a student were to download an Onshape project, what is the file extension that's there?
Cool.
So can you give us some insight?
Sure, absolutely. So Onshape is a fileless CAD system. It's essentially just data in the cloud, but when you go to export, that's when you're able to choose what the file type's going to be. So let's say my goofy cylinder from earlier, maybe I did want to put Brad's modeling to the test and I want to 3D print it myself and see if it's going to fit in the blueprint kit. So if I want to export that, I can click on it and click export. And then from there, you're going to see that I have the ability to choose a name, but I also now have the ability to choose the formats. So of course, I've even have a SolidWorks extension. So things like Step, that's a very standard way to transfer CAD data between different CAD platforms. So pretty much every 3D modeling software can import or export a Step file. So that's a great option. If you're looking to do 3D printing, which is very likely if you're using the Sphero Blueprint Kit with Onshape, both 3MF and STL are very common file types that different slicing softwares can import and then use. I personally started using 3MF because I found the exports are a little bit cleaner. But of course, some probably only take STL. Beyond that, I know there were questions about other softwares like Unity and Blender and things like that. I know OBJ is a common file type for those. If you want to do things like rendering, GLTF is a common one for that. So basically, no matter what you're looking to do, one of these file types will match your needs.
Awesome. Thanks, Drew. I want to address just a couple more things that are coming in the Q&A. And one is, how do we access the blueprint parts in our educator accounts in Onshape? So Drew, while you're sharing, do you mind walking us through how that works, or
Sure.
I can jump over?
I'm going to let me bring up the link to your website, and I will show you how I did it. Let me open this up. Give me just a second. It's taking a second to load. So of course, the Sphero parts library document is public. So you are able to go to the public section of Onshape and search for it. But the way that I did it was actually going to the Sphero resources. Let me see if I can get that link. And Google Chrome is not agreeing with Brad. If you have the link up for...
Yep, sure. I'll actually, if you want, I can take over sharing and
please do.
And pull that up.
Yep, that'd be great.
Absolutely. All right. So right on our website on sphero.com, we have a tab at the top that says lessons and resources. And this is where you can find any of our resources for any of our different products that we offer. In this case, we're going to go to Sphero Blueprint. And under educator resources, we can drop down here and we can see this is where we can access that educator guide, those challenge cards, as well as our CAD support and 3D printing guides. I'm going to click on the CAD support area, and you can see here we have links to not only the CAD guide, but all of the different CAD documents that we have available. I'm going to click on the Blueprint Onshape document, and when I do that, it's going to bounce me right into my Onshape account, or at least the document. Right now, you can see I'm not logged in. So up here, it's asking me to either create an account or sign in. So this document is actually view only, which is really cool that you can go through here and you can see all of those different parts that are in the Blueprint system. Just by clicking on those different parts, you can see that inside of that document, we have it organized into some folders. So there's all kinds of things you can see in here, even some extra things like cardboard and things like that that might be craft materials that you would use in some of your builds. There's even models for those inside of here. Once you log in using the sign in up here, you'll be able to either make a copy of this document or link to it using the labels. And either one allows you to it. The cool part about using labels and linking to this particular document, if we ever make changes to the document, update things as the Blueprint system expands or things like that, it will automatically update your projects with those new parts coming in, which is really a pretty cool feature that's in there. One last question that we have time for, and then we're going to get to the part where everyone's hanging on for those giveaways. The question was brought up, can Blueprint incorporate some basic AI and machine learning lessons with compound machines? So right now we have not included any AI concepts in our lessons. That is certainly feedback we can take back to the content team to discuss how we can incorporate those things. There's a lot of different AI tools out there, so feel free to experiment with some of those AI tools and how you can work with the Blueprint pieces and those AI tools to build some really cool mechanical creations. But that's a great question. All right. So last thing here, if you want to learn more, there's some links here to get you to learn about Onshape as well as Blueprint. We have our fact page and our resource pages that you just saw. Please check out both Onshape and Sphero Blueprint. Some awesome products to do some really amazing learning in those technical fields as we go through there. All right, so the part we've all been waiting for here through this. Let's see here. I'm going to get down here for our giveaway. And for the Sphero giveaway, Jessica, I'm assuming it's L-I, Jessica Lai. If you're still on here, hang around for just a moment. We will make sure that we get information out to you, but you have won a Sphero Blueprint build kit, and we'll get that shipping information out to you and get that to you as soon as we can. And for our next giveaway, I'll turn it over to Drew.
Thanks, Brad. All right, quick drum roll. The winner of an Onshape swag pack, so we'll need to collect some shipping information from you. We have chosen Miriam Walsh. You will be the recipient of a lovely Onshape swag pack. So if you could stick around so we can get some information from you, we will gladly send that your way.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for attending tonight's webinar. If by chance you are going to the ACTE Career Tech Vision conference in Phoenix, Arizona, coming up in November into December, both Sphero and Onshape will have booths at the conference. The Sphero booth will be booth number 825, and Onshape will be 541. So please come visit us and say hi in person, so we can see your smiling faces and share your experience with both products. We will also be at FETC, NTCEA, as well as some other conferences throughout the year. So if you're attending any of those, please come visit us and say hi. There will be a follow-up email that goes out in the next few days that includes a form for you to fill out to get your PD certificate in there. And that certificate gives you some credit for your time and your learning through here. Also, you can learn more at Sphero.com as well as Onshape. And please tag us in your social media and follow us on social media using all of the fun social media channels that are out there. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate everyone joining us tonight. Have a great evening.
Thank you.